Board service has changed and morphed, just like CEOs' jobs have changed and morphed. We are responsible for governance in companies. We're also responsible for the strategy of the company, and we're responsible to have the right CEO leading companies. And those are really the three major priorities. But under that umbrella, for example, on governance, it's also reputation, it's trust, It's doing right by employees and customers.
Haven't the goalposts moved? We had an article yesterday about a consensual relationship but it was with an employee or something, and he had written
with an employee
performance report. I mean, the sensitivity is much greater now.
It is. And I think what companies have to do is they have to be really clear on what's allowed and what's not, and then hold people accountable to those standards.
Can you speak to why you think there are less women running S&P 500 companies today than there was even a year or two ago?
It's called pipeline. You know, if you think about women that wind up being CEOs of very large companies, in many cases, it's because the company's in trouble. And they pick somebody and say, we're going to give it a shot. Person from inside, bringing somebody like me from the outside in a troubled company. And I think a lot of women that ran Fortune 500s for the last decade have been in situations where companies were in trouble.
Maggie, do you believe in the glass cliff?
Yeah, I think we still have to get the pipeline where it needs to be. But otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Let's talk about that, where you say, you make it sound like it's almost a Hail Mary if they bring in a woman to do this. We've talked about the idea that activist investors are more likely to go after female CEOs. Maybe it's because they're in a position of being...
They're doing turnarounds.
They're kind of the last place to go. I mean, that's a really interesting thought. I hadn't put that together before. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that at times you look for someone from within a company or someone who has a track record outside of a company that can come in and be a great leader, be a leader of the people within the corporation, look at the culture, the values, and drive a different agenda. And if you look at the women who have done that, you look at Indra, you look at, as I said, my track record, my sister at Campbell Soup came in on a turnaround. Even Michelle Buck, you know, who we talked to today. These are large companies that have to reinvent themselves.
But they're not willing to necessarily put a woman in charge unless we figure everything we're doing right now needs to be kind of thrown out the window.
Well, I think that's been the historic case. But if you look at where you would traditionally hire from within a company, it's that C-suite. And it's women that have operational background, have run P&Ls. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a CFO. But it's not some of the traditional C-suite jobs that women wind up in. And we've got to give our women more opportunities in running businesses and divisions.
How do you induce women and men, young women and young men, to stem up in college? I don't want to, if I were going back, I wouldn't want to take engineering. I wouldn't want to take any of those. I mean, we need to induce everyone to take those. But how do you do it?
I have an economics degree.
Right.
I don't have a STEM degree.
Be nice to have.
But I have a doctor
more people,
from Stevens Institute in engineering.
Right.
I've run engineering,
Right, but more
firms.
people need to do that and not take, English lit or French poetry or something like that, don't you think?
Liberal arts is a good thing.
I have a semi-controversial, I think it's going to be more than semi-controversial question, and I hope I don't get killed for asking about it, but I want to ask it anyway.
Okay.
As there is clearly a move afoot for companies to have a more diverse management, clearly, and to put people into the pipeline.
Yes.
I hear often now from, especially in the banking and consulting community, from, let's say, call them white men who are in their late 40s or 50s, who think they were on the track to being part of the management committee or whatever the next thing is, and they say, you know what, I'm out. Because the next person who has to fill that management committee slot, by default, if the company's objective goal is to become more diversified, means that I am not on it. What do you tell that person?
Well, I would tell that person, if it was my company, that I just want to have a diverse slate for any job that we look at. It doesn't mean that there's a quota system, and it doesn't mean that you lean toward just a woman or a minority in a job. You want somebody who's qualified to do it, because the number one priority is returning shareholder value. But it's not going to be just a slate of all white men. We should have a diverse slate and then make the best decision for that job in that company.
We've had women on that basically have almost said that the ends justify the means, and some men are going to be, it's not going to be necessarily the best person for the job. They are going to factor in gender more than 5 years ago. And I mean, that's just the way it's going to have to be if you're going to change it. They say it's moving so slowly.
From a macro perspective,
you need to do it that way.
Right. And if you want to be reflective of your customers and you want to be reflective of the market,
right, you'd have to do it that way.
You have to do that, which becomes but it then becomes a very interesting thing on all sides. By the way, meantime, I'm sure women have been saying for decades that I had no shot on the. So that's why I knew that the question was a hard one.
How do you decide what's qualified? How do you decide who gets there?
It's what skill bases they have, the potential for doing well in those positions, track record of how they've grown already. Right. And look, I agree. I don't think that it's all going to go to all white males, but it's not going to go to all females too. I think you're going to see more of a balance, but that pipeline takes a long time to get to that corner office.